Hey guys, it's Vishali. So I'm at a very quiet Stamford Bridge where just a couple of hours ago Chelsea lost their London derby game against Spurs. They lost 3-1. It was a really entertaining game from a neutral's point of view. I thought it was quite intriguing to see just how close the game was up until the second half when Ali scored, and then of course he scored another goal a couple of minutes later. Now I'm sure you guys will have all seen the highlights and obviously seen the reaction from it. So I'm just going to look at really the good and the bad things for Chelsea, and of course the good for Spurs. So let's start off with the bad. There are quite a lot of bad elements to this game, and I think what it showed for Chelsea, the first is obviously the position. They are now 8 points behind Spurs in that race for a top 4 spot. I said before this game that this was going to be a huge match for Chelsea, one that they really couldn't afford to lose because of the fact that they were 5 points before this game behind Spurs. They're now 8 points. I think there's 6 Premier League games left to go, and Conte's come out and said that no, Chelsea must fight till the end. But you have to say a top 4 spot is looking highly unlikely, because even if they win all their games, they need Spurs to drop points as well. And I just think, looking at Spurs' form, I just can't see that happening. Although the fact that Chelsea do play Liverpool, another top 4 rival, it's just looking like there's not going to be Champions League football here at Stamford Bridge again next season. Of course, you saw that last season. Looks like it's not going to be. You're not going to be seeing that next season. I think what was also really interesting from Chelsea's point of view is really Conte's fears this season, stuff that he's been complaining about all season, about the lack of squad depth, the lack of quality in the squad. It showed today. A really good example of that was when Chelsea were losing 3-1. It was coming up to the 80th minute, and I was sitting with my colleague actually here in the press box, and we were looking at the subs who were warming up for Chelsea, and we're like, oh, who could Chelsea bring on to really turn this game around? And we looked at Giroud, like, yeah, Giroud would probably come on, and he did come on. He partnered Alvaro Morata up front for a while before Morata was replaced. But then you looked at the rest of the options, and there really weren't that many creative options for Conte, and that kind of shows just what Conte has been complaining about all season, the fact that he doesn't feel like he's got the depth in his squad. He doesn't feel like he's got the quality on the bench to really, when things aren't going right, to be able to bring on those kinds of players who could turn a game around. And I think in some ways, his fears have been realised today. He was actually asked about it in the press conference, and he refusing to talk about it again. He said, I don't want to repeat myself again and again. And I think effectively another sort of bad element from this game is really what it means for Conte and his future, because it was already looking kind of bleak. You kind of feel like there's going to be a divorce between Chelsea and Conte at the end of the season. But the fact of the matter is, I think maybe if they had secured a top 4 spot this season, it still is doable. But there could have been a chance that Chelsea could win the FA Cup. Maybe Conte may have stayed for the remainder of his contract, although he insists he will be staying to the end of his contract. But I think now, looking at Chelsea's position, I just think it's looking increasingly, likely that Conte won't be around next season, which I think is a massive shame, because I'm a big fan of him as a manager. I'm also a big fan of him as a person as well. He's great to be around as a journalist, and he treats everyone with a lot of respect. He's a lovely guy as well. Now I'm gonna look at the good. I'm sure Chelsea fans at the moment will not be wanting to think about or looking at anything that could be positive from this game. But there was one positive from this game, and that was Morata scoring again. Remember, he scored against Leicester in the FA Cup quarter-final before the international break. He wasn't picked for Spain, and Conte said that actually the break was good for him to boost his confidence. I think he went away to Dubai for a couple of days, and he scored again today with a header. I think that's his 7th Premier League header of the season. It's the most, he now has the most goals through headers in the Premier League this season. I think the fact that now he scored for a 2nd consecutive game, that's a good sign for Chelsea, because they need Morata to be firing between now and the end of the season, and certainly obviously next season as well. So that was one positive for Chelsea. There weren't many from this game, I have to say. I think what was a real concern for Chelsea is the fact that when things get tough, you've seen it this season on numerous occasions, there just doesn't seem to be that winning sort of mentality in the squad to kind of turn things around, the kind of fight. it seems to be a bit of a fragile squad in terms of mentality, I think, at times, and I think you saw that here against Tottenham. But we have to praise Tottenham, and this is where I'm going to come on to Spurs and Mauricio Pochettino and what he's done here, because today, Eriksen got that all-important equaliser just before the break. It came at the perfect time, and then Spurs really fought back because Chelsea came out in the second half and they were doing pretty well. Tottenham fought back. They pressed really well today. They were trying to win back every ball. I thought Lamela was really good actually today, and of course you have to praise Dele Alli because he's got a little bit of criticism during the international break off the back of not starting for England and kind of his form recently for Spurs. But today he scored 2 goals. You saw the way he celebrated, cupping his ear to the fans, to all the critics and stuff like that. And I think Pochettino reacted quite well at halftime and made a tactical change as well, and I think he deserves credit for that. And for what Spurs have done this season, looks like they'll be pipping Chelsea to a top 4 spot, and it's kind of revenge as well, I think, for Spurs this season, off the back of what happened 2 years ago at the Battle of the Bridge when Chelsea ended their title hopes. What's next for Spurs? They play Stoke away. What's next for Chelsea? Well, we'll be back here next Sunday when Chelsea take on London rivals West Ham. It's going to be a really interesting game because West Ham are fighting against relegation. So it's going to be interesting to see if Chelsea can recover, or will West Ham, heap more misery on them. Stay tuned on my YouTube channel next week for another vlog from Stamford Bridge.